Should we have ever trusted our private info to these companies to begin with? No. And Anthony actually put his notes in here. And that's why I no longer use most big tech services if possible. I mean, one thing that I will say from personal experience, I'm not going to give too much detail, but I think I should talk a little bit about this experience. I think people not talking about it just allows scammers free reign.
I think you shouldn't go into very much detail.
Okay, I won't go into very much detail, but my wife and I were recently victims of wire fraud. And the point of ingress was a company that we worked with that had...
Go further than that. Just company that you worked with.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to say what they do.
Okay.
But I'm going to say what happened was a third party gained access to their email system. Full access. So what they did was they basically, as far as we can tell, they chilled in there for an extended period of time.
Yeah, which is common.
Yeah. Once you got access, you don't act right away. So they chilled in there. They watched incoming things that were happening. They watched who the clients were. When they reached out to us, it was in the tone and style of writing that we were accustomed to. The from domain was correct because they had full access to the email system. Our messages going to them were being diverted and then were being replied to from the correct domain and seemingly from the correct people. Even just like...
Which that's going to get past so much like common practices for sniffing these types of things out.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people will like, okay, this is a little suspicious in terms of the request or whatever, so I'm going to jump in, I'm going to check this domain, I'm going to check these keys, I'm going to do whatever, but they had all that stuff, which is crazy.
And so, the conversation that Yvonne and I had, I'm not even going to say who ultimately was the one who sent the wire to what was ultimately a fraudulent address. The other of us basically said, could have been me too. Could have easily been me.
This is very sophisticated.
Apparently this is called business email compromise. It has a name. Yeah. So there you go. And the good news is that through methods that I am not going to get into any detail, even though some time passed before we were made aware, we have been able to freeze the funds. And we are currently working through the fraud team X, some fraud team, and legal authorities on getting it returned to us. So our sincere hope is that we are going to come out of this without learning a very expensive lesson. But I will also say that we will absolutely be putting more measures in place for any wire that goes out, any payment that goes out, because a wire is very challenging to recall. It's basically like sending cash effectively. So Kevin Close in Floatplane Chat says, wife and I work for a bank and we deal with this stuff more and more recently. Yeah, I basically, what I said when the thing happened was that I've never encountered a scam so convincing. This is so many tiers above, I'm a Nigerian prince locked in jail. All I need is for you to post bail for me and I will send you $1 million, right? Like that, this level of sophistication is very incredible. And the reason that I want to talk about it is that I have talked the talk in the past about how important it is for people who are victims of fraud and scams to not be ashamed and not keep it to themselves, because it's so important to get the word out there. And I feel like even though I haven't given all of the details because I don't want to dox anybody, I don't want to get anybody in any kind of additional hassle, I've given you guys enough details that in your daily dealings, and if you share this story with other people that you know, hopefully they can put additional measures in place that will help protect them from it, because it was a really sophisticated attack. Yeah. And
this technically actually does not solve all of the problems, but picking up the phone is helpful. They can change the phone number in the email. Yeah, that's a fairly common
Yep.
thing. But try to
by like one digit.
try to have the original phone number.
Yep,
Don't call the one that's in the email.
that's right.
Call the original one that you have or the one that's listed on their website, which again can also be compromised.
Yep, and
There-
this is a
yeah,
crazy thing because they had access to the email. They had access to all their templates,
Yeah.
so everything was on proper letterhead.
Yeah.
And this was like
This type of stuff-
multi-dozen email chain going back and forth negotiating on this wire.
Yeah. This type of stuff gets past a lot of the common practices to avoid social engineering problems. It does.
Trackle
doesn't
says it's
technically
not that
get past all of them.
sophisticated. Compared to Nigerian print scams coming from some random email domain, yeah, writing in the style,
It's pretty sophisticated.
continuing on with a current project that is already ongoing, picking up right where it left off with all the right names, all the right communication styles, email going back and forth correctly as far as the user can tell. It's pretty sophisticated by comparison,
I
yeah.
wonder what that person's definition of sophisticated is, because like DDoS isn't very sophisticated. So like, where is their zero? I don't know.
I don't know. It's I think it's just a little bit of sort of armchair coaching, you know.
Yes.
Why did he drop that ball?
I've done cooler stuff than that before. Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough. Kilvor says, can't you hold the company accountable? It's 100% on them. So it's a little complicated, right? We still need to work with that company, for one thing. For number two, assessing the blame in a situation like this is, I think, one of those things where it certainly wouldn't be as simple as full blame here or full blame here. We did send the wire. It is my belief that the notification to us could and should have come sooner, but that's something that would have to be settled in court. We could spend so much on lawyers that it ends up ultimately not being worth it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can sue for your legal fees, absolutely. But what if this is a situation where the company just kind of goes, well, okay, well, we're bankrupt. See you later. Well, now who's going to pay our legal fees? Someone will. So it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy does stuff. You know what? These are words to live by. No matter how savvy you think you are, you can be had. Don't be a jerk. Sound the alarm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to do right now is say, look, it happened to me, and I'm not going to say I'm the savviest customer in the world, but I'm pretty aware of things to look for, and this one, it got by my radar. There were things that smelled weird about it. And there were times you know what? We probably knew better between the two of us. But we were in a hurry. And actually that's a big one. Just being in a hurry.
I was just going to say, I think that honestly the biggest problem here is that you guys just have so much stuff on your plate.
And I was reading up on how people are defeating 2FA these days. And a big one is figuring out what the 2FA device is. And there's a way to generate spam login prompts. And so once you've compromised the password, you then, especially in the middle of the night, for example, you do like a few requests, and people, they're not thinking right. They'll just return one.
Yeah.
And then you're in. And once you're in, you add an alternate recovery email, and you can do all these things that they might not get a notification for. Actually, a lot of services are better about giving you a notification when an email is added and things like that. But there are still things that can be done that could compromise, that could at least give them access, and at worst, compromise your access to your own accounts.
Yeah. There's also just like, I mean, while we're talking about security stuff, I was watching this video recently where someone was talking about war driving. I've talked about war driving before.
War driving. I don't know if I'm familiar with the term.
War driving used to be more common back when Wi-Fi passwords were like just incredibly easy to crack. People would people would drive around with a laptop in their car with stuff running to just automatically crack all the Wi-Fi networks that they drove by. And you could effectively make mobile internet by just setting up a system that would jump onto these networks that you had previously cracked as you were driving around. Someone was talking about modern versions of that because modern Wi-Fi encryption kind of defeated that, sort of. Except that a lot of people use extremely defeatable passwords. So it's like, yes, okay, you can't like beat these encryption levels or these like length of passwords in a reasonable amount of time. If it's garbly-gook, probably. Like, yeah, there's technically a chance that it'll grab it on the first attempt, but the chance is effectively zero, so forget about it. But there's a huge amount of people that just use their phone numbers. So this guy drove around, war driving, but with it only guessing numbers. Only numbers. And he used the local area code as the first few, and just got tons of them. Like, it was ridiculous. So don't do that. So funny.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, all right.
Security's tough, and it's an active activity. It's an active process that people have to take part in. And a lot of people won't have a problem. It's very boring, and it's very annoying to keep up with.
Yep.
And people won't have a problem for a long time, so they'll let it start to slip, and then they'll get hit, and it hurts, and then they got to figure it out from there.
Can hurt real bad. One of the things that I want to add to our data backup strategy is an air-gapped backup.
Yeah.
One that literally, or maybe like, oh, this would be kind of cool. Like, because we wouldn't try to do the vault. The vault doesn't have any backup. I don't care about that. But the real server, it would be kind of cool to have like 3 machines that are like physically air gapped, or like you, man, how would you do this? Either physically air gapped, like with a robot freaking arm that like pulls the Ethernet cable out, or like, you go into the firmware of your switch and you actually disable the ports. So each of them is like physically air gapped for 2 out of 3 days. So you actually roll to 1.
Oh,
then it goes air gapped.
Yeah.
Then you go to the next.
Wow.
Then it goes air gapped. Then you go to the next. Then it goes air gapped. And this one comes back on. So that if you got hit by like a ransomware attack or something like that,
you'd lose at max a day.
You'd lose at max a day worth of data, and you'd have a full air gapped backup because they can encrypt your whole network.
That wouldn't defeat a super targeted attack, but that would defeat most things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because super targeted would just wait until they were loaded on each server.
Man. Yeah. Amazon Glacier asks Jax. Yeah, that would be an option. Oh, Keeter says, doing an air gap for a Fortune 250 company right now. The air gap is done through a firewall randomly automating connectivity. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, again, though, that doesn't.
There are ransomwares that will look for revolving backup schedules.
Exactly,
yeah, amazing. Like, I love it.
Yeah, it's not going to stop everything.
Nothing is ever air gapped. Stuxnet proved that, says Cold Dew. Yep. Okay. Yep. That's fair.
Yeah, if you want an air gap, create a gap of air. That's the best solution. Don't plug it in ever. There you go. Solution solved.
Oh man. Okay, I want a really big USB drive. And I will physically stand there and copy it at random intervals.
Oh man. No. And that still doesn't solve all the problems, because if you're taking data from one machine to that air-gapped machine,
it could be timed.
It could be timed so that they technically sync up. Like it's really rough.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy town. Crazy town.
Thanks for watching, and thanks to Secret Lab for sponsoring this week's clips. Secret Lab chairs are engineered to keep you comfy, and with up to 5 years of warranty and a 49-day return policy, you're covered if anything goes wrong. Head to the link in the description to get your Secret Lab chair today.